Steve Hawley, our LOHS principal, and Nick Kosia, who is our District Dragon Virtual Program Coordinator. So again, welcome this evening. We thank you for taking your time. This session will be recorded and will be posted afterwards. So if you have people that you are aware of that are not able to attend, it will be posted, or if you want to go back and listen back to something, you'll be able to do that. This evening, we're going to go through a brief information on the high school Dragon virtual program. It will be an hour this evening. And then at the end, we will have a question and answer session. So as we're going along, please feel free to put your questions in. And once we're done with the presentation of the information, we'll have a question and answer session. So thank you, and we'll turn it over to Nick.
Thank you, Mrs. Mercer. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for our presentation. All right, thanks again, everyone, for attending. We hope we have the information you're looking for. So we wanted to kick off by addressing why we decided to go with EdgeNuity. And we've been using EdgeNuity for a while now for our Learning Options High School and our summer school courses. But EdgeNuity is based in research-based curriculum and solutions that propel student success. They're using up-to-date research in online learning, instructional design, and educational psychology to build a learning environment that supports and challenges students in all the right ways. A little bit of background on EdgeNuity. They are in over 20,000 schools nationwide. All of their courses are aligned directly to the Michigan content standards, the Common Core standards, and NGSS. Lake Orion staff, and this is a very big point for us. This is one of our most important points. The Lake Orion staff has the ability to uniquely customize each course so it aligns directly with our in-person courses and our curriculum maps. The courses themselves combine direct video instruction, rigorous assignments, performance tasks, and assessments to engage students. Those are some of the reasons why we decided to go with EdgeNuity. A little bit of the logistical side of things. Like the other two levels, our virtual program, the registration began earlier this week, yesterday at 8 a.m. It will close on October 2nd. That's Friday at 4 p.m. And I don't want to skip this bullet point here, but Dragon Virtual will begin when in-person learning resumes on November 9th. Late registrations, and we can't emphasize this enough, late registrations will not be accepted. We have, especially at the high school level, with the complexity of the schedule and the wide range of courses available, the scheduling and staffing side of things must get underway as soon as possible. So those late registrations will not be accepted. Families who choose the virtual program will commit for the remainder of the first semester. That will end on January 22nd. If a student decides to come back in person, they can make that change. They simply will not re-register for Dragon Virtual when we open it back up later on in the semester, and they'll return to in-person in January. Students who wish to remain in Dragon Virtual will be asked to re-register for the second semester, and we will inform everyone of when that registration will open up in time for the second semester. So a little bit of the program overview. The LOHS students registering for Dragon Virtual will engage in courses on the EdgeNuity learning platform. That is, all of their courses will go through the EdgeNuity learning platform. They will participate in self-paced asynchronous learning experience tailored to align directly with LOHS curriculum and graduation requirements. And we really want to emphasize that these graduation requirements are unique for each individual student, and these EdgeNuity courses will cover those graduation requirements. Students will have access to designated LOHS teacher facilitator that will be certified in the content area of their course. Primarily, work will be independent and self-paced. Office hours will be made available to students in each course, so they have the ability to connect with staff. Students will be able to communicate regularly with their certified LOHS teacher for each of their scheduled courses. And students will be scheduled in LOHS aligned courses that meet their individual and graduation requirement needs again. Mr. Howley, did you want to expand on any of these points in particular?
You know, as I look at these bullet points, I think it's important to remember for our parents that the real key distinction here and what separates EdgeNuity that we're going to be using beginning in term 2 is the differences of EdgeNuity courses that you might see otherwise, in addition to what we had during the summer. You know, our students that took EdgeNuity courses in the summer really didn't have teachers that were facilitating those courses that were content experts in each one of those classes. In the term 2 of our school year, those people that choose Dragon Virtual, those students, they will have for each one of their courses a very specific teacher that is a content expert in that area of study. For example, for their math courses, they will have a LOHS math teacher that will be guiding them and assisting them through the course as they move through the EdgeNuity lessons. And I think that's an important distinction to how we will be utilizing this program in term 2.
Excellent points. Thank you. Furthermore, feedback will be provided on assessments and assignments pieces by the LOHS teacher facilitator. Students will continue to be allowed to participate in all school events, clubs, athletics, and all extracurricular activities. Students interested in band, choir, or other electives not offered through EdgeNuity will need to select other related electives or choose in-person learning specifically.
Yeah, in regard to that, no, we've had a lot of parents reach out to our office in regard to band and other electives. I think that everyone can imagine that in a virtual setting, there are some courses that are just very, very difficult to replicate. That would be the case with a course like band or choir. And unfortunately for those Dragon Virtual students that choose this option moving forward, those type of courses just would be impossible to replicate.
So we wanted to provide a little bit of a side-by-side in comparison to remote learning as well, because those two, remote and virtual, they get tossed around a little bit, but there is some distinct differences between the two programs. In the remote learning setting, synchronous and asynchronous learning led by an LCS teacher does occur. Now, synchronous meaning everybody's participating at the same time on the same content, probably some live meetings. Asynchronous we know as a little bit more independent. In the Dragon Virtual setting, it's asynchronous from the learning that's happening in person, but those students are still following the same curriculum maps and covering the same content. They're just doing it separately from what is happening in the in-person environment. And of course, they'll be using the EdgeNuity learning platform for their learning. In the remote learning setting, that content is paced by the teacher. So that teacher will be assigning daily activities, assessments will be planned in advance, projects, due dates, all those sorts of things are paced out by the teacher. In Dragon Virtual, however, that's independent and self-paced by the student. So student has a little bit more flexibility to work on their schedule and what meets their needs. In remote learning, periodic teacher interaction. We've been experiencing that from the beginning of the school year this year. In the Dragon Virtual setting, communication with the teacher facilitator at the student request and weekly LOHS teacher check-ins. We can combine office hours into that too. but there is less frequent required or structured meeting times as compared to a remote setting. In the remote learning and in the Dragon virtual setting, teacher feedback on assessments will occur, and that will be from their certified LOHS teacher, regardless of whether it was a remote setting or a Dragon virtual course on EdgeNuity. And then finally, in the remote setting, required regular meetings, more of that structured, scheduled on a day-to-day basis. And then in Dragon virtual, one of the advantages to having this approach in Dragon virtual is the flexible schedule.
Yeah.
Students can really flex their time and make it meet their own individual needs.
I think, Nick, this is an important slide for our parents to see. One of the questions that we've received quite often over the course of the last week or so is, why can't Lake Orion High School continue to teach kids in a remote fashion like we currently are? There are great challenges to that. We spent a lot of time looking at what would be the best model moving forward for not only our in-person students, but also students that choose Dragon Virtual. And truly, it came down to the challenge with individual teachers at our high school being responsible not only for the students that they have in front of them in an in-person setting, but at the same time trying to negotiate and work through a remote learning setting like we currently have. Those are just hurdles we could not overcome. We really feel like the EdgeNuity Dragon Virtual program that we have with our Lake Orion High School teachers facilitating each one of those courses, aligning the curriculum precisely to what our in-person students would meet each and every day. We really believe that it is a product that we will have students have success with. And again, I've said this to many parents that I've spoken to over the last week. The current Dragon Virtual model that we're presenting this evening is not necessarily a long-term solution. It's something that we think is important to have to give parents an option now for those folks that have health concerns about sending their kids back to school. But we also believe that moving into the future, we hope to have students back as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And, looking ahead even into next year, Dragon Virtual could look very different from what we're doing right now. Like Mr. Hawley said, this is a response to our current state of our country. And we just wanted to provide a safe place for our students to learn and grow.
I do want to clarify that this slide here is a simple description of the difference between remote learning and Dragon Virtual. However, remote learning is not an option. Once we go in person, the only options will be in person or Dragon Virtual. We will not be offering remote learning. Remote learning at this point in time is just a stopgap. It is a response, something that we've been needing to do because we cannot offer in person at this point in time. So I just wanted to point that out, that I don't want there to be any confusion. There already is a lot of confusion over what is virtual, what is remote. Remote is a short response to this crisis that we're in, where the virtual program is, we're bringing kids back in person. This is a more long-term solution. So just to be clear, remote is not an option once we come back to in-person. It's either in-person or Dragon Virtual.
Thank you, Mrs. Mercer. And that really, that makes me think of another point, that if we should have to go remote for whatever reason in the future, or a student, whatever happens to the in-person settings, Dragon Virtual will remain Dragon Virtual. Nothing will affect those students in their virtual environment. So I also wanted to share, if you weren't in attendance for the middle level presentation, this would look new to you. I wanted to share a little bit of the EdgeNuity student side of things. And again, I have to apologize for the size of the graphic. I thought it would have appeared a little bit larger, but when your student logs into EdgeNuity, should they choose Dragon Virtual, the home screen will be extremely easy to follow. All of their courses will be listed right on the home page with up-to-date information, including current grades, progress on materials, and pacing guides that will help students sort of prioritize what they need to work on at the current moment. Those current grades appear as percentages on the home screen, if you can see sort of tiny there next in the graphic. And then there's a little slider bar across the top that shows the percentage, or excuse me, it shows the pacing. So if it goes red, that student knows that they need to pick up the pace a little bit on that course in particular. On the day-to-day, the lessons are organized in a streamlined fashion. They move down a list of tasks, and completed tasks have, I mean, it's as simple as having check marks. They've got alert icons to let students know of any upcoming due dates. The course map, you can look at it as a very intense view, seeing the day-to-day individual assignments or tasks, or you can zoom out to view the whole course and see the course navigation from start to finish. This screen in particular also offers something kind of nice in estimated times to complete an activity, so students can schedule their time as needed, and their scores on that completed work will appear in this screen as well. And finally, another screen that I wanted to share with you on the EdgeNuity side of things for the students was their resources, their student resources. So anytime they work their way through a course on EdgeNuity, e-notes will be available, and those are fillable online or printable so the students can handwrite them. But if they complete them online, they get saved to their EdgeNuity platform. They can also print off calendars with due dates. And even though we'll still be using PowerSchool for our grade, our records keeping and our attendance, progress reports and attendance reports will be available on EdgeNuity also. This will bring us to our last slide here before we get to the Q&A, and then I'll offer the other speakers here if they wanted to offer any last minute thoughts before we get to the Q&A. But please, again, refer to the Dragon virtual page on lakeorionschools.org. The FAQ is constantly being updated. Mr. Snyder is updating that almost on the hour with your questions as new and different questions come in. You can also find those registration links on the district homepage. I believe it's a pop-up as soon as you go to lakeorionschools.org. Important dates are posted there on the Dragon virtual page, and you can find a little bit of tech help as well. I know Mr. Holly's been fielding a lot of questions via email, but if you have any questions that you feel that you need to send to me as well, you can see my email there, nicholas.cosia@lok12.org, or you can send it to the general Dragon virtual email that you see listed there. Before we get to the Q&A, did anybody else have anything they wanted to share? All right, let's do it.
All right, here we go. What is the plan if COVID-19 cases escalate before the November 9th start date? Will everyone stay remote, or will Dragon Virtual begin while face-to-face stays remote?
More than likely what would happen is at the secondary level, at least, we would not begin Dragon Virtual until we can begin face-to-face. So if for some reason we were not able to come back as planned, we would stay with the schedule that we are in right now for secondary, is what we are currently thinking.
Why would LO use a software program rather than the LO teachers to educate LO kids?
This is something that I think is, yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Sure, I spoke to that a little bit before. Really, as I had mentioned early in the presentation, we looked at all different models, and truly the hurdles that would be required because of the complexity of a high school schedule, and also having teachers navigate teaching students in person and also teaching them in a virtual setting at the same time. Those were just hurdles we could not overcome.
Not to mention the individual certifications, right, of teachers teaching, let's say, a biology course and only being certified in biology or anything like that. The certifications lining up for staffing, that sort of thing.
I think there's also some kind of misunderstanding regarding EdgeNuity and software. Our teachers are directly involved in the EdgeNuity activities, in the assignments. We're able to go in, set the pacing. So Lake Orion, and that's why we have used EdgeNuity for so long and have chosen to stay with them through Dragon Virtual, is that our teachers have a lot of flexibility in that program. So it's not as if we are just putting students on a computer in a class. Our teachers are hands-on with the information that is being presented to the students, and it is aligned with our in-person classes.
Do you want to expand on who will do the grading for EdgeNuity courses?
Yes, some of the grading will be done by the teacher facilitator assigned to that course.
And that's a Lake Orion teacher?
That is, it's an LOHS teacher, yes.
Will choir be offered in Dragon Virtual?
Choir will not be offered, no.
Yeah, I spoke to that earlier, that there are some elective courses that are just impossible to replicate in a virtual setting. Unfortunately, choir being one of those.
Sorry. I understand that electives like band and choir can't be offered virtually. If a student wants to change their schedule to pick up an elective supported by EdgeNuity, should they just contact their counselor at this point, or will their schedule be adjusted automatically if they enroll in Dragon Virtual?
So our counselors are standing by to schedule any student that is selecting the Dragon Virtual option. There is the opportunity for those students to make contact with their counselors if they have particular courses that they would desire. But I would point out the complexities of the high school schedule, the Michigan Merit Curriculum, and keeping students on course for graduation and our LOCS graduation requirements is something that our counselors are very good at. They work very closely with our students and our parents to do that. So our counselors will be scheduling students.
When will Dragon Virtual students in high school get their content? Will it come to them daily, weekly, or monthly?
The content's preloaded on EdgeNuity, so students log in as frequently as they want, and the content will be ready to go for them. So in a sense, the content is preloaded all the way through the end of the course, and students engage in that content on their own self-pacing.
Why are core classes at the Dragon Virtual middle school level being able to be taught by LOCS teachers, but core classes are not being able to be taught by LOCS teachers at the high school level?
You know, I've got a pretty intimate knowledge of the middle level, and then maybe Mr. Holly can expand on the high school level. But at the middle level with teaming, and because the course offerings are, well, frankly, less, we're able to schedule an hour in a middle school core teacher's day. The fact that we have to offer EdgeNuity for our electives just shows how electives themselves can be tricky to schedule in this format. We can't provide that time for an elective teacher to have an hour in their day. So even at the middle level, the complexity gets even more tricky when it comes to electives. But having kids on teams and having those core teachers available for an hour allows us that opportunity to keep it in-house, so to speak.
Right, right. And I think everybody can understand that there's significant differences between a middle school schedule and offerings and what a high school schedule looks like and offers. We are very lucky in Lake Orion that we have a course offering book that offers a plethora of elective courses, core courses that many high schools across the state of Michigan cannot offer. And because of that, it creates a lot of complexities with scheduling students. And again, our schedule looks very much different than the middle level schedule.
How does the pacing of EdgeNuity courses compare to the pacing of the Finnish Algebra 1 summer class?
I can speak to at least the point that I made earlier, one of the significant differences that our Dragon Virtual students will see in term 2 this year, those that select this option, will be that they will have a specific high school math teacher working as facilitators for these courses. So they'll be in lockstep with a teacher that is a content area expert. And I think that's a significant difference from possibly what took place either in the summer or if somebody were to have taken an EdgeNuity course in another setting.
If you do in-person starting in November, can you switch to Dragon Virtual next semester?
Mrs. Mercer, are we all?
No, if you're in person, it's in person for a commitment for the year. Dragon Virtual, if you commit Dragon Virtual, then you have an opportunity at the end of the semester to either go back in person or re-sign up for Dragon Virtual.
Is there only 1 hour of live interaction with an LOHS teacher per week in Dragon Virtual?
You know, we're working with our teachers at the moment to set up what the schedule will look like for the ability for Dragon Virtual students to contact and work with their teachers of record. We haven't come to terms on, you know, if that will be an hour or 2 hours. It's really going to depend on the course, the teacher, the schedule for that week. But what we're really trying to do and what we're sharing with our teachers is that we want to continue to promote what we always promote in Lake Orion, and that is to build very strong relationships with our kids. Even in a Dragon Virtual setting, making contact through email, being available for students to email and make phone calls, those things are going to be very, very important to keep that relationship and to make sure that students are staying on pace with their coursework.
As a school district, can you legally not allow students to switch from one program to another based on parent request? For instance, you choose to return face-to-face because it's in a hybrid on November 9th, but changes to all in-person and you're not comfortable with that many bodies, can you switch to Dragon Virtual? If not immediately, could you at the next quarter?
It has nothing to do with what is legal. This is a local Lake Orion decision, and it comes down to balancing the staffing and providing a consistent program for our students. So that is why going back and forth, this is, you know, it's very difficult to manage and to provide consistency in our programming and for students. That's why we are saying if you are going in person, you need to commit for the year. If you are choosing Dragon Virtual, you commit for the semester until January 22nd. And then you'll have the option at that point in time to either come back in person or commit for the remainder of the school year in Dragon Virtual. Every time we do this, it's almost like starting the whole school year over again.
Yeah, I think that's a key point, you know, for our parents to manage the complexity of the high school schedule and moving between different formats of education is extremely challenging. And staffing always is a key component to that challenge.
If my daughter is in honors pre-calculus now, what is happening on November 9th? Where is she going to start in EdgeNuity for the second part?
So we're going to work closely with our department heads and our department teachers, and we're going to we'll have those courses aligned so that your student who has completed the first term of honors pre-calc up through that first term, EdgeNuity will pick up with as little to no gaps or overlaps on the EdgeNuity platform.
Yeah, our department chair specifically went into each course, made sure that they're aligned directly with our in-person courses. It should be a seamless transition.
How would Dragon Virtual work with the students who are doing Otech?
Students that are doing, oh, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, that will continue to be an option for our students. It's a program that we've offered for many years, and whether the student is a PM Otech or an AM Otech, we will make sure that our counselors balance Dragon Virtual with their scheduling options.
Has the board already approved this?
Yes.
How long will the hybrid be available? What is the estimate? I'm considering in person because it is hybrid.
That is something Mr. Kirby spoke to at the last board meeting, that this is something that we are continuing to monitor with the COVID cases throughout the county. Again, we don't know that, but it is something that we continue to monitor. We will keep track of the numbers and all of the information that Mr. Kirby is gathering from the Oakland County Health Department, along with superintendents in the area. He speaks, regularly at each of the board meetings and gives an update. And so, again, this is something that we're closely monitoring, but we honestly don't know. It's very hard to predict.
So this question kind of goes with that. Since EdgeNuity doesn't look desirable and my son is being compelled to return to in-person classes, where they're wanting to review the rationale why their family should feel it's safe. Do you want to point them to where they would find that information? Maybe the board meeting that Mr. Kirby gave that information?
Yes, and all of the board meetings are taped and posted on our website. So any of the board meetings he's giving, for every board meeting, he has given an extensive update regarding the information that he's received over that 2-week period. And so if you missed the last board meeting, that is on our website and it is recorded. You can go back and watch it. But every board meeting, Mr. Kirby does give an update regarding the COVID data and information that he is receiving.
In that board meeting, he did talk about how why he feels at this point it's safe to return to in-person learning, correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
And to point out too that this was something that is ongoing with Mr. Kirby. He is having these meetings daily, continually, because we're obligated by the state to review the learning plan, the extended learning plan, every 30 days. So that obviously isn't. So this was not a process that stopped last week when he presented the current plan. He continues to meet with medical and health professionals. He continues to monitor data, talk to his colleagues. So this is an ongoing process for him on a regular basis.
Will the students' schedule change now that once Dragon Virtual starts? Well, so if the schedule they have now, will that change once Dragon Virtual starts?
So yeah, I can speak to that. Because we have a pretty robust offering through EdgeNuity courses, most students that choose the Dragon Virtual option will see very little change in their schedule. It's possible that particular elective courses could change, but for the most part, our core courses are very consistent with in-person and Dragon Virtual options through EdgeNuity. So we feel confident that most students will see very little change in their schedule.
How will this affect students with IEPs?
That's a great question. I think that one of the key things that as a parent of an IEP student, I would highly suggest that they make a phone call to either Heather Rutledge, who is the director at the high school for special education, or any of the caseload teachers at the high school, so that they could talk through what the accommodations are going to be for those students, but also to give those parents a better idea of whether or not they want to choose this option.
Are students receiving flipped instruction in EdgeNuity?
No. EdgeNuity itself, it delivers its instruction through direct instruction in video. In a flipped sense, students are assigned the videos as almost like a homework assignment. They might jot some notes, and then that instructional piece is done at home. So that's the flip side of things when they come back in person. And that's the key there, that they come back in person to a live meeting or a group setting. They can expand on that learning a little bit. So it doesn't really fit in the Dragon Virtual model being asynchronous and self-paced.
My son is a senior and has anxiety and OCD issues that will not be going back face-to-face. My concern is that there aren't a lot of electives available for him because his track is art. And are the classes in Dragon Virtual listed one marking period classes, or are they blocks? I.e., if my student took German 2 in Dragon Virtual, they would have to continue that class on January 23rd.
So all students that choose a Dragon Virtual option will have the same number of courses that they currently do. So if they currently have some skinnies on their schedule, they will continue to have skinnies on their schedule. That's a requirement of state pupil accounting. So their schedules will stay very consistent in those regards. But as you mentioned, they could have some elective course changes.
So what is going to happen with students who were already in band class? Will they have to fill it with a different class?
Correct. We do have a few electives through EdgeNuity that have a musical tint to it, and they could select those options if they so choose.
How many students will an LO facilitator be responsible for?
Yeah, so that is really going to be dependent upon the numbers of students that sign up for Dragon Virtual. Once that takes place and counselors start the scheduling process for each one of those individual students, we'll have a better idea. We do want to keep it very manageable for the teachers of record, the facilitators of Dragon Virtual, so that, again, as I said before, despite it being very asynchronous and independent learning, we still want a relationship to be had between the teacher of record, LOHS teacher, and the students that choose this option.
If students are self-paced in virtual now, will they be caught up with face-to-face students if they decide to go face-to-face in January? Are there deadlines to meet?
So that's part of what the curriculum alignment that we're going to be working on. The courses themselves will be aligned to match and mirror what's happening on the in-person side when it comes to, say, a core class like Algebra 1. So if a student decided to come back at the January 22nd mark, there would be, again, just as if they were entering the program, when they exit, there would be a seamless transition as well.
Why can't Dragon Virtual proceed regardless of the situation for the students that elected to go back to the classroom but cannot due to a decision to stay remote? What prevents LOCS from doing both?
From doing, I'm sorry,
So
remote.
that question stating if I kind of think it goes back, like if everything changes before November 9th and the families choose Dragon Virtual, why can't we just start Dragon Virtual November 9th at that time, since we've already made that, those families have already committed, and the other students just stay in the remote setting? Why can't we do both at that time?
That is a potential. Right now, we're not considering that at this point, because again, students that are in a remote setting right now, we have a particular schedule. So it would make sense at that point in time, no one's in person. There's only one program that we're offering, and that would be remote based on COVID. So we would be keeping it at this point in time. That is the thought. Again, having parents choose, it would only, I think, be fair to parents that they would have that option again when we would be allowed to come back in person. We're trying to be considerate and empathetic to the fact that, you know, when we're asking parents to make these decisions, they're making the decisions based on the environment that we are currently in. So if for some reason we deemed it not appropriate to go back in person, again, we would not be forcing parents to make a decision. It would be all remote. When we felt it was safe again, we would again travel down the same road. We are very much hoping that that is not going to happen this time. But again, this is, we're doing the best we can with the information that we have.
What is going to happen with PSAT and SAT?
Our high school parents know that each year the state of Michigan requires schools to offer the pre-SAT, PSAT, and also the SAT for our junior students typically. Last year, our juniors did not have that opportunity. So recently, our parents were sent emails regarding PSAT and SAT assessments that will take place this fall in October. Please take a look for that email. We are going to send a reminder email out in the coming days, but that will happen in the fall to take place of the assessment that was missed in the spring. And then we also will again have the typical spring assessment in the 21 school year.
Will the students have interaction with one another in this format or an ability to work with classmates virtually on class projects or assignments?
The intention of the course is to be asynchronous, and it's designed that way. Although a student meeting up with another student who they know are in the same course, they have those opportunities to communicate. They've got the resources, they've got the tech, they connect with each other as they do in person or in the remote setting. So, you know, we'd encourage our students to communicate with one another and learn and grow together in this format too.
I think that's a tremendous idea, and the more that students can help each other, I think it's a great idea. There also may be opportunities where a group of students can set up a meeting with a teacher with difficult content and assisting them in that way as well.
What level of support can be offered to high school students? For students who fall behind due to illness and need additional support, what is available for them through Dragon Virtual?
The systems that we have in place, I mean, this goes back to what we just said. We have the resources and the tech available that as long as we keep open lines of communication both ways between the teacher and the student and the teacher, that teacher facilitator can help students navigate those difficult situations when they get sick themselves. And they have the flexibility at this point. With EdgeNuity in particular, because it is self-paced, students can work when it meets their needs. And as long as they're keeping those open lines of communications with their teachers and everybody's on the same page, there still can be success.
Will homework and tests all scheduled on a set schedule? Are homework and tests all on a set schedule?
They are, well, the curriculum itself is streamlined, so students work through it progressively, and assessments follow the end of a content chunk. So with it being self-paced, and something unique to the EdgeNuity platform is teachers will be monitoring that progress of the students, and as they approach those assessment dates, students will have to complete review assignments. Those review assignments will get kicked back to the teacher. The teacher can look at that, provide feedback. And once students have seen that feedback on the review assignments, and they travel into those assessments, they are clear to go on those assessments through EdgeNuity. But again, it's self-paced. So not everybody is assessing on the same day. That is individual to the learner.
Will any classes be added to the curriculum for second semester, or is the list that we see now it?
The list of courses, it's pretty finalized. There is potential that if we see a number of students and parents that are requesting a particular course that's not listed, it's possible, but not probable.
I know you touched on the IEP question, but there's several here about how does Dragon Virtual work for students in special ed as well as students who have 504 plans? What is the support for those students?
Yeah, so any student that has a 504, I think, as I mentioned before, making contact with a school counselor might be a good idea to talk through that individual's 504 and the accommodations that could be met through EdgeNuity and through the coursework with the teacher of record. I just think that would be a good way because each of 504 is very different. Each individual student is very different. So having that conversation with a counselor, I think, would be very important.
Will students that go virtual that return to in-person in January keep their current second semester schedule?
Yes, so we schedule students each spring for an entire school year. So those students that would come back into in-person learning would keep their schedule as it is.
So therefore, if they're in band right now, go to Dragon Virtual, can't take band, but then they come back, they can get back into band, correct?
Absolutely. Yes, correct.
What if you return face-to-face in November and are exposed to COVID or are COVID positive? What would be the educational plan for that student?
Yeah, and we touched on this in the previous meetings with the other levels. The access to teachers now virtually, we've established this through remote, that students have access and they can make contact with their teachers regularly. So we would treat someone who is quarantined for whatever reason or out sick the same, and keep those open lines of communication and keep students on track with their learning.
How will they transition in terms of the curriculum pacing work from a skinny remote learning course to a block Dragon virtual course?
So our educators have the ability, as it's been mentioned before, through EdgeNuity, the flexibility that we have to create the courses to align with our current courses. And that would also include the pacing of the course or the length of the course, making sure that all the important content is included.
Can a person do Otech and Dragon virtual?
Currently, we're saying yes. We have not heard from Otech yet in regards to if they will be remote, virtual, or in person. We're hoping to hear that soon, but currently we would allow that.
Are leadership classes available in Dragon virtual?
So the full list of courses that are available are found online, locs.org. There are some courses that mirror our leadership courses, but not identical.
If school must go back to remote, are Dragon virtual students still Dragon virtual, or is everybody going remote? So we start in person, Dragon virtual starts. Now we have to make a shift back to remote. What happens to the Dragon virtual students?
We're looking for as little disruption as possible. So if we make it into an in-person return, Dragon Virtual has started, Dragon Virtual will remain.
If my child was previously in a class that is not offered by EdgeNuity, do they have to choose a new course to replace it? If so, how long will they know what classes are available to them? If so, how will they know what classes are available to them?
Yeah, so in most cases, if that occurs where a student has to choose a new course, as I said before, our counselors handle all of the scheduling of students to make sure that they're staying on track for graduation. And it's possible that communication between the counselor could take place if they had a particular elective course that they would want to choose.
There's a question, how's testing going to work? I'm not sure if that's state testing, it just says testing. What about, would students be required to come in person to take any kind of assessments if they were in Dragon Virtual?
Yes, there is potential for in-person testing, and we'll follow all the guidelines listed on the LOCS website.
Our intent would be that it would be minimal, but there could be a state test or could be an assessment where we need students to come in, but that will be minimal.
Can you share the criteria for LOCS to stay in-person hybrid, 100% in-person and remote?
There is no one specific criteria. Again, this has been addressed at each of the board meetings. Mr. Kirby is in contact, as Mark had alluded to earlier, every single day monitoring this. There's not one particular criteria.
Will mentors have dedicated time and hours for the virtual students?
They will have one set hour during the week that has to be posted and maintained. Other than that, it will be arrangements between the student and the teacher, whatever works for both of their schedules to be in contact with one another.
Can you explain how the block classes work if Dragon Virtual is chosen?
So I stated before that whatever a student has currently on their schedule, if they have blocks and skinnies, they will continue to have blocks and skinnies. If they have all blocks, they will continue to have all blocks. And again, we have a lot of flexibility in how we adjust the courses in EdgeNuity so that they align to a skinny or to a block, and so that the pacing is correct.
Why not wait until January 22nd to make this change to in-person or Dragon Virtual? Why is it necessary to make the change in early November with so much still up in the air?
Again, based on the criteria that we are reviewing, we feel that it is safe at this point in time to try to get our students back. And there are many people who want the opportunity to have their students return in person.
Just to clarify, when will the current juniors take the SAT provided by the school?
The current juniors will take the SAT in the spring, as our juniors always do. Our seniors will take the SAT this fall because they missed it last spring.
If you choose in person, will your student have the same classes and teachers that's shown on their schedule now?
One more time, the teachers.
If you choose in person, will your student have the same classes and teachers that is shown on their schedule now? So
In
currently,
person.
would they'll have the same teachers?
Yes.
Yes.
Or in person.
Yes.
For in person, that's what I'm saying.
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
I'd like to go back to the SAT thing for a minute. Mr. Hawley has shared that information recently in emails to all of the parents in the high school. So if you have not received those emails, please contact the high school or contact me at communications@lok12.org, and we can try to make sure that your school messenger settings are updated.
Steve, this is a question about the green and white teams and how they will work. How many days per week will a student be in person versus at home doing remote learning?
So they're asking about a comparison between the.
So if they're assigned the green team to come back in the hybrid schedule, how many days a week will they be at school versus at home learning remotely?
Yeah, so I don't know about how many days. Obviously, the alternating schedule will allow us to have half of our population in the building at any given time, which is being done for health and safety reasons. As the green and white team alternate through a month, they will eventually be meeting the same number of times over a period of time. But we're trying to maximize the amount of instructional time that we can have in front of our students in person, while also keeping the building safe, keeping our students safe, and our staff safe.
As a student, I'm curious about COVID cases and how they will be distinguished from the cold or the flu this winter. How is the district going to distinguish between the two?
Well, to begin with, we have the Clear to Go app every day that students and staff need to fill out to complete to come to school. And in the Clear to Go app, as you'll see when your name is put in and school is about to begin, it mentions that if you have an unusual unusual cough or an unusual circumstance in that situation, referring to allergies and asthma. If you have a cold symptom and it's unusual and it's something that is a typical cold, we do not want you to come to school. This is a normal practice and obviously it's heightened now because of the circumstances regarding COVID. If you were to get tested, that would be your choice and your family's decision, but we want people to have a heightened awareness of those opportunities and to stay home during sickness.
Will band be available face-to-face in-person learning?
Yes.
And what will happen if a student is currently taking a remote class that is not available in Dragon Virtual?
Students will be matched up as closely as possible in their schedules. Band and choir are a good example. The class just is not available through a virtual setting. So those counselors will be working closely with the students to make the changes necessary.
On the hybrid schedule, how are students being taught on their remote days?
So I think they're referring to the days that they're not there, the green and white days. Right. So this is where the flipped instructional model becomes very important at the high school. Obviously, we've talked a lot about what the flip model is. Very simply, it is allowing students to access content, lessons 24/7. When they come in person the following school day, they'll have an opportunity to do collaborative work, group work, and really emphasize the previous night's lesson that the students would access online.
This is a little bit off topic, but since PSAT was brought up, why is the PSAT optional makeup scheduled for Thursday, October 29th when classes are in session versus a Wednesday when classes are not scheduled to meet? Students will miss class if they choose to test.
Yeah, those dates are dictated to us by the Michigan Department of Education. So the 29th is a required testing day for the entire state. We don't have a choice.
I think that is all the questions at this point.
I do know something that has come up in other sessions, and there were a little bit of face-to-face questions in this session. For more face-to-face information, there is information on the return to school plan that is on the website. We will not be conducting a face-to-face session such as this, because all of the information that we have is posted in that return to school plan. And then obviously, according to building the build, for instance, arrival and dismissal, each of those procedures will be building specific. So if you do have in-person questions and want more information regarding in-person, again, that is in the return to school plan that is listed on the website.
And some of those details will be shared by Mr. Hawley as we get closer to November 9th, the ones that are still being ironed out by the administration.
Right.
So again, just a few things to recap for the High School Dragon Virtual. The commitment is for a semester. The registration is through this Friday at 4. The platform that we are using is EdgeNuity with our own LOHS teachers, and it is an asynchronous independent learning for Dragon Virtual for the high school. If you have any questions, please make sure that you email Nick he has his email that is posted on the website on the presentation. And again, this is being recorded and will be posted on the website for further information. FAQ is constantly being updated. So again, refer to the website to keep up to date regarding that information as well. We thank you for joining us this evening. Have a good night.